Welcome back into the Illini cast. I'm your host, Austin Berkland, alongside Sonny Verma. And Sonny, I understand yesterday was a big day for you. Happy belated birthday from myself and the rest of the Illini cast nation. So happy birthday.
Appreciate it, Austin. Yeah, turned the big 4-0 yesterday. And, I'm. They say that you feel 40 once you turn 40, and I feel 50 right now. I don't know. My voice is still gone. I feel sore all over, but, powering through.
Yeah, I'm 29, so I'm going to hit the big 3-0 in February, and that's going to be a really, really weird feeling. So, any
Austin,
advice as you exit the 30s? Any advice for somebody entering their 30s?
first off, 20. I got pimples older than you, so don't worry. Don't worry about your age. Secondly, no, I heard like a saying way back when that at 20 you're trying to impress other in your 20s you're trying to impress other people, and 30 in your 30s you're only trying to impress the people in your life, and in your 40s you realize that you don't got to impress anybody. So I think it's just I'm getting older too. I'm kind of at that point where I'm kind of content with my circle and just kind of focused on all these several little projects that we're working on, and got a beautiful wife, two wonderful kids, a wife who's completely supportive, so it's like, what can I complain about?
I mean, the value system is probably what changes from the early 20s to the late 20s. And I can't imagine the value changes from the 30s into the 40s. And when you start getting like family and kids and everything involved.
I will say, this upcoming weekend, I will be celebrating my 40th in Las Vegas. So if any of the Illini fans who listen to this live in that area, please let me know. Let's have a beer or a shot or a bunch of both together.
What is your Vegas move? Is it gambling? Is it drinking? Is it going to the club? What is your Vegas move?
Well, again, this is also a different 20s, 30s, and 40s thing, right? 20s,
Yes.
absolutely. I was up all night. Wherever the crowd was taking me, I'd follow them. Now I basically go every year. I usually go for conference tournament weekend, the week before March Madness, essentially, every year. And I stay at this place called Westgate. Westgate's got the most incredible sports book that you're going to find. It's just off the strip, but it's amazing. You can see me, I can sit down at 8 in the morning, bet on some English Premier League soccer games, and because you're on West Coast time, you're talking about like well, back in the day, Pac-12 games being on till 10, 11 o'clock at night. So now I'm more of a gambler. Friday night, I'm going to the Vegas Knights hockey game, so that should be a fun experience. But yeah, overall, looking forward to it. It'll be nice just to kind of get away and reset, and just have some fun with the boys.
Absolutely. And speaking of resetting, the Illinois basketball team needs a little bit of a reset after a great road trip weekend where they beat Rutgers, where they beat FAU in Madison Square Garden, but they fell in Knoxville, Tennessee to the Tennessee Volunteers 86-79 on Saturday. And the offense of Marcus Domask and Terrence Shannon Jr. just couldn't really get going in the second half. And the rebounding kind of stopped for the Illini. Do you think this is more of a blip, or is this something of a bigger concern for you, Sonny?
I mean, those factors in particular, I think I'm very concerned about. But in the grand scheme of this game, um, I think we played competitively, and I actually jotted down notes on the game, and I had more things that I liked about this game than I didn't like. So overall, the spread was anywhere from 6.5 to 7.5. We lost by 7. I think we kind of played, just kind of true to form. I think we didn't go down in the Ken Palm or anything. Like, we basically stayed right where we're at because the expected outcome of that game against Tennessee happened.
Yeah, I mean, you look at this Tennessee Volunteers team, and Dalton Connect is just an unbelievable player. He was 7 for 14 from the field, 2 for 5 from the 3-point line, had 21 points on the night. And these are the kind of matchups that are going to help you win these kind of games in March, because you're seeing a guy like Dalton Connect, where he's going to do whatever he wants. You saw the screen action that led Dalton Connect open for a lot of mid-range jumpers, and Illinois kind of had no answer for some of those motions that Rick Barnes' team drew up. And I think this is a really good test for the Illini in before the March comes around for the tournament, because that was a raucous environment. That was a Illinois team who was kind of struggling from behind the field, and they still only lost by 7 points. It very well could have been a much worse situation, but you did have guys step up like Quincy Guerrier come in and do some really nice things. So I got to leave that game pretty optimistic. You wanted more from a guy like Marcus Domask, but you can't complain too much after a 33-point outing against the number 11 team in the country at that point. So I really have nothing but major positives from this 3-game road trip. These kind of games will happen. I predicted a 5-point loss, so it really was in the realm of expectations of what this game kind of boiled down to.
I mean, I think you nailed it. Like, this is a game where this was what the atmosphere is going to be like in March. In a raucous stadium, the crowd was all into it. The referees, let's just say, they didn't have their best game in that second half, which I'm sure we're going to talk about later. But it's just one of those where yeah, I still have questions, and we'll talk about it. About Domask, and is he that second guy? I'm genuinely curious now that what happens if Tennessee just gave everyone the blueprint on how to beat Illinois, and that's to basically collapse on Terrence Shannon, don't give him that opportunity to put his head down, drive the lane, and score buckets. Do we have someone else that's going to be able to step up? Obviously, Damask did 2 games ago, so I'm not counting him out by any stretch of the imagination. But I don't know if I'm ready to use Penn to slot him in either as that second spot. It's just one of those where we're going to have lingering questions moving forward. But I mean, this Tennessee game was the second toughest that I had earmarked in our out of conference schedule. Let's be honest, like last year's team gets blown out on
Yep.
Saturday. Last year's team gets intimidated by the crowd. All of a sudden, they're out of it. We probably would have lost that game by 20 plus points. This team, we were down 14, 15 points halfway through the second, and they just kept grinding. We never could ultimately make it back, but you know, it's nice that I don't have to question the fight on this team, because I couldn't say the same for the teams of years past.
I mean, finding that second option, like Quincy Guerrier, 22 points on the night, but I think an under talked about storyline from this game is kind of Coleman Hawkins. I mean, he had 12 points, yes, but he was 3 for 10 from beyond the 3-point line. I don't know what kind of realm that Brad Underwood wants him shooting 10 3-pointers in a game whenever he's not on one of those like heat check moments kind of games. So I'd love to see a little bit more action of him driving to the lane, because I think that's going to be how he makes it to the NBA anyway. It's not going to be because of his shooting ability. It's going to be because he's has some athleticism, he has some length, and he can drive to the hole. That just didn't really happen. 4 for 13 from the field goal line. So, I mean, that's 3 shots that were in front of the 3-point line. That's not going to get it done for the Illini basketball team. And then the major elephant in the room, as always, is a guy by the name of Ty Rodgers. The defense is there, but offensively, it's becoming a 5-on-4 game for the opponents with what Ty Rodgers brings offensively. There's not too much of that booty ball going on. I thought that was going to be one of the calling cards of his offense, but whenever you can't get that going, his shooting ability is not there. And quite frankly, he's kind of scared to take the shot at this moment.
He's just got to develop a move. He's got to develop a move that he feels comfortable in. He does it a couple times a game where he does kind of the Shannon, just drive to the basket, and more often than not he misses. But I'm glad that he continues to attempt that. It means he's somewhat confident in it. I don't want that confidence to shake. But again, he was also 3 for 4 from the free throw line from in the Tennessee game, and I think he had a pretty decent free throw game against FAU as well. So it's like slowly but surely, maybe once he starts making some free throws, a little bit that confidence starts creeping in. And again, maybe I'm just being a little overly positive. Like your point about Coleman Hawkins. If you told me that he shot 10 3-pointers, I would have guessed he made maybe one. I'd still set the over under at a half a 3-pointer. Scoring three, I think the whole team got very 3-pointer happy in that second half. I don't think Tennessee was really allowing them to do much else besides that. And again, one of our Achilles, not having a point guard to, set up a proper offense. A lot of the times we just kind of take whatever offensive shot we can get. And against a really elite athletic teams like a Tennessee, when we have that open shot from 3-point land, the guys just launched it. So I don't think it was just a Coleman Hawkins problem. I think Terrence Shannon took way too many 3-pointers, more than he should have in that second
He
half.
was 1 for 6 total.
Yeah. And I think he was just getting frustrated that he really couldn't get much done. The entire game. They bottled him up. They switched. They collapsed on him whenever he came to the rim. So, I get your point on Ty Rodgers and Coleman Hawkins, but, despite all of that, and our best player having, his worst game of the season, playing away in Knoxville against a team, in my opinion, on their best night can win the national championship, to lose only by 7 points, I'm not going to lose any sleep over this game.
It is kind of interesting just looking at how Brad Underwood utilized his bench. Justin Harmon had his 12 minutes. Luke Goody had 23 minutes. He had 8 points, but he had 7 rebounds as well. I mean, he was very vital on doing the little things to help his team win, or to help his team at least. But you look at these numbers: Dainja, 4 minutes off of the bench. Dre Gibbs Lahorn, 1 minute off of the bench. I mean, there's just not a lot of guys that Brad Underwood truly trusts at this moment, other than the starting five and Luke Goody right now. It's kind of interesting to see. I know those numbers will change with foul trouble, as Big Ten officials sometimes are stricter in the early onset of the conference play, but it's going to be fascinating to see how Brad Underwood trusts the guys not named Terrence Shannon Jr. and, to a certain extent, Marcus Domask.
I think the next 3 games are going to be huge for Dane and Gibbs. It's we just went through a really tough part of our schedule where we had 3 opportunities to get those quad 1 wins, which we know are really important to Brad because of the importance he sets on March. I think he just went with the guys he trusted, but against teams like Colgate, Farley Dickinson, and we'll see what happens with Missouri. I think now he'll kind of give other guys a little bit more run. Dane is just my biggest question mark right now, because when he has the ball, he's almost an automatic 2 points, but he's just an automatic deduction of 2 points as on the other side of the court.
Mm-hmm.
4 minutes is tough. Like, he's such a weapon. He's one of the best inside scorers in the Big Ten. And, I don't know if is it still conditioning, or is it just simply, him not playing the defensive role correctly. But that's, I think, one of my biggest disappointment here. Believe it or not, we're almost entering, 1/3 of the season done. And, I'm shocked at his role, or how his lack of role. The other freshmen, I think these games just mattered a little bit too much, and they're going to get a lot of run against, in particular, Colgate. Don't get me wrong, Colgate's a good team. I know we're going to talk about them later as well. But this is the time to kind of, he went with the guys he trusted, and now this next stretch is going to try to build trust in the other guys for the conference season.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the turnover battle between Tennessee and the Illini, it was at 9. But you look at the rebounding battle, that's kind of the showcase of discipline uh, between two teams. Tennessee had 43 rebounds. Illinois had 34. So that rebounding battle was tough to witness in the second half. And I feel like Dainja could have helped with that. But again, defensively, whenever you have like a guy like Dalton Connect that can drive and that could cause so much havoc in the half court, It didn't really allow Dane to stay on the court to really do his thing because he was just going to be a defensive liability against Dalton.
Yeah, and he just continues to be. It's one of those where we're going to need him in the conference. Like, it's tough. We can trust Coleman Hawkins, to do what he does. I still think when it comes to a value standpoint, he's probably the second most valuable player that's on our team for everything he provides on the defensive end also. But right now, Gary A obviously he had his best game as an Illini last game, but we've seen what Dainja can do on the offensive end in last year. He's got a very soft touch. He goes up at the rim. He can get baskets. Can't hit free throws. Obviously that's going to be an issue, especially in particular at late in games. But I think if Illinois has aspirations to challenge Purdue for that Big Ten conference, which it got a lot of talk in national media after that victory in Madison Square Garden. I think we've got to find a role for Dane where, at minimum, he can play 15 minutes a game, just provide a scoring punch off the bench for a team that really doesn't have much scoring. Yeah, we are a very solid to good defensive team, but as I mentioned earlier, like outside Shannon, I never really know where the scoring is going to come from on this team. And Dane's one of those guys who has the talent to give us buckets, and so I think that's going to be one of Brad's biggest tasks that he's got to undertake to see what the ceiling of this Illinois basketball team is once Big Ten play starts.
Absolutely need more than 4 minutes and 2 points from him. And he also had a personal foul in 4 minutes. So that's kind of quick as well with only 4 minutes of play. Do you think this is the right starting lineup? Do you think you can move Luke Goody where Ty Rodgers is? I know that would hurt defensively, but I just feel like sometimes you need that spark offensively, and Luke Goody can at least bring that from behind the 3-point line.
I liked what Luke Goody did against Tennessee. He had I think 4 or 5 rebounds just in the first half.
Hmm.
And really, if you swap Rodgers into the second unit, then who's going to score in that second unit? I can't think of like who's going to get any buckets from there. So I think with Domask and Goody kind of playing, you know, at times together, but more so just counteracting each other. Like when one's off the bench, when one's on the bench, the other one's on the floor. I think that just works. I keep things going. Again, it's up until now we've had a pretty successful season. We've lost the 2 games that I thought we would lose to. I had us projected to lose to. And again, I think we competed very well in both losses. What I'm dreading, and I did a little Tennessee preview for this matchup early, at the end of last week. What I didn't want to see was like what happened in that Penn State game, which I remember in particular because it was also my birthday weekend. I was excited. I showed up at the bar, and then all of a sudden, we were down like 20, 25 points in the first half, and the game was never even close. Like we were defeated as soon as the it was jump ball. And I was afraid that was the only conclusion in that Tennessee game that I did not want to see happen. I don't want to see the old time Illinois teams where you can tell just a couple of minutes in they just don't have it today. And I haven't seen that yet this year. We've competed. I think the group of guys that they have in that locker room are there to compete. So I wouldn't dabble in changing anything right now. I think obviously yeah, Ty's got to work on a few things, but let give him the ball during against Colgate. Let him go to work. Just if he screws up, he screws up, but like trust him because again, I still like him. I still like him as a player. I just think he is put into a position by Underwood and the staff that doesn't suit his skill, and that's unfortunate for him.
I mean, I know we're talking a lot of negatives for a team that's the number 20 team in the country, but that's just kind of the minutia of between like those good teams like Illinois and even Tennessee are the number 20 team in the country, the number 17 team in the country versus the top 10, top 5 things that you want to see to get Illinois to where they want to be at the end of the season. So I'm very happy with how this season has gone so far. I mean, you're 7-2. You've lost a tough game to Marquette with Tyler Kolek and then Dalton Connect. Those two guys are aiming to be first team All Americans right now, alongside Terrence Shannon. So if you lose to those two guys, that's not too bad of a non conference. Yes, you have a big game against Missouri coming up, and I know you can't overlook Colgate. But if you beat Missouri, I kind of wanted like 2-2 in those big time matchups in the non-conference before the season. If you listen back to our preseason episode, so I can't complain too terribly much. It's just that next gap between good and great that Illinois is kind of missing at the moment.
I just wonder if, and we talked about this in the preseason, I don't know if this team has it to get to the great. I think unless we develop or unless Domask really takes on that role of that secondary scorer, I think right now, that number 15 in the country, maybe number 13 in the country might be the ceiling for this team. There's just, we're very sound. We're very sound defensively. We're very sound offensively, but there's just some gaping holes on this team that are just too big that unless they're taken care of, uh, will just kind of be one of those where we have a good, not great season. Now things could change. Obviously that one game where Moretti played, like he played very, very well, and he played like the point guard that we absolutely are lacking on this team. And I don't think he's coming back until at least after the new year. But I mean, if he can provide good point guard minutes for 10, 15 minutes a game, that could kind of change where the trajectory of this team is. Obviously, none of us counted on him to do much, but it might be too tall of a task to live up to that one game that he played. I forget who it was against, but he could be an X factor. But until we figure out who that secondary scorer is and what we're going to do about that point guard position, I just think that right now we're kind of playing to our ceiling. Do we have potential to go higher? Maybe, but some changes need to be made.
I do think if you look at this team in a matchup perspective, if we were playing hypothetical bracketology at the moment, I feel like if Illinois were to play a bunch of like FAUs where they're just great teams where they don't have that individual elite score, I feel like Illinois could run the table to a Final Four, Elite Eight kind of situation until they meet up with one of those first team All American, truly great scores that you're going to have to match and then some to beat. I think that's kind of where Illinois' matchup problems instill. And if Illinois just plays a bunch of great team basketball teams, I think this could be a really magical run in the NCAA tournament. But I don't necessarily think that Illinois will get that lucky in terms of the selection Sunday.
I mean, at some point, the luck has to turn around for us, right? Scheduling wise,
Yeah,
we've been on the wrong end for the last few seasons in a row. At some point, the ball's got to bounce our way. I think our ceiling is where Shannon's ceiling is. If we go as high as he can take us. If we run into a buzzsaw defense with a bunch of athletes in the tournament that can do something similar to what Tennessee just did, where they can just collapse and bottle up Shannon, and then again, we run into the same problem. I don't know who picks up the scoring. So I think as of right now, the way this team is built, where Shannon goes, that's how far Illinois will go in that tournament.
absolutely. I mean, speaking of that second score, you thought it was Marcus Domask. It still very well could be in conference play, but 2 for 11, 0 for 5 from the 3-point line. Didn't do much on the boards, had 2 total rebounds, 6 points, 3 fouls. Wasn't the banner day for Marcus Domask. I feel like he was trying to do a little bit too much whenever he saw that Terrence Shannon was getting bottlenecked, and I feel like he kind of let the game get to him instead of him attacking the game.
Yeah, and a lot of credit goes to Tennessee. I think Tennessee, they're very good defensively, and they knew what Domask was trying to do, and that's basically do exactly what he did against FAU. but Tennessee's bigger than FAU. And they put some bodies on Domask, and things just didn't work out that way. I still believe in him. I still think he could be our second best player on this team, but we're gonna need him now. Most of his good teams or good games have been against the good teams, which is a promising sign. Yeah, he laid an egg against Tennessee, but once Big Ten schedule hits, we're gonna need his veteran leadership. We're gonna need him to keep the composure. He's one of the reasons we don't get blown out against Tennessee. In that raucous environment where the crowd is going insane, the ref has made a couple of calls that have gone against you, and all of a sudden some young guys might just get overwhelmed by everything. Domask is one of those leaders on the court that we're kind of counting on to right the ship. Like, hey guys, we'll be okay. Just play one possession at a time. But we're going to need him once Big Ten schedule enters, because not. I mean, I guess outside Purdue, and it's not like anyone's really looking all that impressive. I guess Wisconsin maybe, but it's still important to compete every single night and make Purdue sweat for it by the end of the season.
I know we still have 3 games left in this non-conference, but what kind of grade would you give this Illinois team thus far in the non-conference portion of the schedule? Ignore the Rutgers game, and I know that was a one-off with Big Ten play, but just this non-conference schedule so far.
I mean, I would probably say B minus. Like, okay, like I'm satisfied, but we didn't win the 2 games. Had we won one of those games, I may have possibly considered it an A. But what concerns me is the holes that we talked about earlier: the point guard, Dainja, and the second scorer. Those concerns of mine haven't been absolved yet. So I think right now B minus. If I included Rutgers, I'd give us a solid B, because obviously winning a game at the rack is a huge deal for Brad Underwood in his career. But I'm going with B minus. What do you think?
I'm gonna go with a B. I mean, the fact that you lost by single digits to Marquette and Tennessee, it looked like you belonged on the same court as them at least. Because how many times have we watched an Illinois basketball team or an Illinois football team that we thought was pretty decent just get run off the field or run off the court the minute that we start getting a little hope, getting a little optimism about them. I feel like losing to Kolek and losing to Connect, um, those 2 guys by single digits, I feel like that's very, very promising, and I would probably add a B plus with that Rutgers win in there at New Jersey. But I just can't be too depressed on how this non-conference has come out, because Terrence Shannon Jr. has showcased that he's a bona fide star in an Illini basketball uniform, and he just needs that one other piece to show up game to game. It's going to have to be second score by committee at this point, and I know that kind of stinks to hear, but I do feel like Brad Underwood can find lightning in a bottle game to game. Yeah, there could be some woes here against like a random team like Northwestern in Big Ten play that you're like, oh, Illinois is down by 6 to Northwestern. What happened? Oh, Terrence Shannon had 18 points and had 6 points in the second half. Like, so I got to be impressed by what this has done, but this could very certainly come to a C if Illinois gets beat by Missouri and if it looks anything like it did last year as well.
I was gonna follow up your talk right now with saying just that. Like, you and I both completely agree that this game against Missouri is a must-win. They're it's we've been lifeless the last couple of years, and I haven't been able to figure out why. I know records don't matter in this sort of game, but my B minus quickly becomes a C if we lose to Missouri. This is just a game that we need to win. We have the veterans there. It's a must win. Colgate again is going to be a tougher than people are giving them credit for. They've been to the tournament a couple years in a row now. Fairleigh Dickinson, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. That should be an easy win, but we got to come out of this stretch. At least. I mean, I think we got to win all 3. So I think if we're 10-2 going into the conference conference schedule, I'll be very happy.
I mean, this is a team in Missouri that has lost 70 to 55 to Memphis. They lost to Jackson State 73-72, and then they lost to Kansas 73-64, a team that in Kansas that yes, it was an exhibition that Illinois did defeat, and Illinois hasn't laid that clunker yet, like to a Jackson State or to a game in a game like Memphis that could have looked like old Illini games against FAU would be that Memphis score that Missouri had. So this is not this is not a Missouri team that should scare anybody. Their lead scorer is Sean East Jr., averaging 17.2 points per game, 3.7 assists, and a 57.3 field goal percentage. So there's nobody that scares me on this Missouri roster. And as long as Terrence Shannon shows up, maybe Marcus Domask brings some juice to this rivalry, because since he's seen it in Southern Illinois, like, I think this could be a game where Illinois is like, "All right, daddy's back. Sorry, Missouri, you're done. You're done."
Yeah, it's got to be a double digit win. Like really, I know this series is a one team goes on a stretch of a run of winning, 5, 6 in a row, then the other one wins 3, 4 in a row, and there's not a lot of back and forth, but it's time to turn the pendulum back around to the Illini side. Our team is clearly better, clearly superior, and arguably, of course, that was the case the last couple of years as well. But yeah, this Missouri game is probably not as important as you and I think are making it sound it to be, but at least from a fan's perspective, I think it's immensely important, just for the rivalry's sake. It's we get this win again, then we're a nice solid 10-2 going into our Big Ten conference schedule. At 10-2, we're probably ranked in the top 15. 3 wins. We're at 20 now. 3 more wins, top 15. We beat Northwestern team. I think that's who we play first in our conference.
Yep,
You
number
know,
22 in the country.
yeah, if we beat that team, then all of a sudden we're looking at possibly top 10, and then I'm pretty sure we have. Is it Purdue then, or the Purdue the following game?
Yeah, so we have Northwestern, Purdue, and then a suddenly stinky Michigan State team.
Right. So you know, let's take care of these next three, and then we're potentially setting us ourselves up for a top 10 showdown with the team from West Lafayette. And we got a football game to avenge.
One guy that I'm so excited to see in St. Louis is what Coleman Hawkins can bring to this game. He's been embarrassed 2 years in a row. Last year's kind of when things kind of started to unspiral with Matthew Meyer, with Sky Clark, with everybody just um, being so combative with each other as an Illini basketball team. I think Coleman Hawkins feels like he has something to prove in that game, and I can't wait to see what he does with that because this is the kind of game that could make him a lot of money in the NBA draft if he just balls out like we know he has the capability of.
Yeah, you're talking about what, the game's 9 days away. Gives him more time to heal, because I do think some of his struggles this year have to do with this injury that he missed a couple of games for. But you look at his plus minus, and there's arguments on both sides on how much you trust plus minus. But against FAU, it was plus 25. It was the highest on the team.
Mhm.
So I think I agree with you in the sense that, or no, maybe it was Rutgers. It was plus 25. But I think I agree with you that this could be the Coleman Hawkins game. And if Missouri is the Coleman Hawkins game, I think almost all of the Illini fan base will forgive Coleman for his struggles in the first 9 games of the season.
Absolutely. Sonny, what a run this non-conference has been. I can't believe we are this far into the season. I mean, it feels like yesterday we were just talking about the fourth game of the Illini football season, and now it's one third of the way through the basketball season. So a lot to look forward to, a lot of questions that need to be answered for this Illini basketball season. But this is going to be a fun run coming up with Colgate, Missouri, and then Big Ten season is upon us.
Yeah, and Austin and I are going to be trying to churn out as much content as we can on this channel. So we'd love for you to send those thumbs up, the likes, subscriptions. You can find us on all the podcast apps, whichever one is your favorite. Austin, I'm not sure if you noticed, but our numbers have been going up pretty drastically the last couple of weeks, and we appreciate all of you guys for watching. And so, it's going to be a good run. Obviously, it slows down a little bit over the next couple of weeks, but we still have the transfer portal on the football side to talk about. There's a couple other teams in the conference making some big moves apparently, and so that's something we can also discuss down the road. But either way, we're just going to be spitting out content.
All Sonny wants for his birthday is subscribers on YouTube. So give him his birthday wish, people.
That's it. That's it. That's all I want. Please just hit that subscribe button.
Sonny, it was a great episode. Thank you so much. And we'll be talking about the transfer portal during finals week, and then a back to Illini basketball coming up around Christmas and the new year.
Looking forward to it, Austin.
All right. This has been the Illini Cast as part of the Big Banter Podcast.